come to order. The meeting of the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District Board of Managers is now in session for March 24th, 2015. All managers are present. Manager Casal stepped away, but he has been here. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board on a matter that is either not on the agenda or that is on the consent agenda? Seeing no hands, we move on to approval of the agenda. I want to add an item under action items is 12.6, and this will be a report from the executive committee concerning correspondence from the county board. Are there any other additions or corrections to the agenda? Is there a motion to get it before us?
Move approval.
Second? And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We have no items for under the information items this evening. Under the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes of March 12th, approval of the check registers, the general accounting, general checking, surety account, and 325 Blake Road, and consent items 7.1 through 7.8. Is there a motion to approve the consent items?
Move approval.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent items are approved. Under President's Report, the April 2nd Operations and Programs Committee meeting will be canceled. Manager Olson and a number of staff members are not here, and any items that would have been on the agenda will be handled through the next workshop or other items. And we have just come from an audit review committee and executive committee, but we will discuss those matters as they come later on the agenda. Planning and Policy Committee report, Manager Calkins.
Thank you. The Planning and Policy Committee met last week and focused on the Land Conservation Program. Reviewed the history a little bit and talked about the future relative to the development of the comprehensive plan. And there are two tracks that aren't really new, but one of them is acquiring land for fee title as an option, and the other one is working together through a variety of avenues to acquire easements that would be a benefit to the district, which is something that was a goal of the program, but hasn't been pursued that much since the history of the program. And so staff has an interest in focusing more on that, working with developers to come up with easements. So there'll be further discussion about that. And we also talked about three specific properties. One of them was the Stonegate Farm, and by the way, you have minutes that are much more detailed in your packet. But Stonegate Farm is an opportunity to work together again with a developer and with the potential of the district being a land steward for that development, and the committee recommended that that staff pursue that. And the second properties that we talked about was the South Katrina Marsh, which has had trouble with flooding in the past year, and there's an opportunity there to work on taking a look and potentially reducing the flooding, but also to get easements around Katrina Marsh that would be a benefit to the district in the future. And then the last one was the Jerks property on Dutch Lake. We discussed that. The developer to the north, I guess it would be, had an interest in putting a cul-de-sac on the district's property relatively close to the lake. And we recommended that we not pursue that, but that staff continue to work with the city and the developer to see what we can do with those properties mutually.
Thank you. Any questions? Are there any other managers?
Well,
Yes,
Madam
Andrew
President,
Miller.
the one significant, well, I felt it was significant anyhow, coming out of the meeting, and it was really enlightening, is the fact that if we get these easements in conjunction with these working with the developers and the city for the built environment, we end up with these natural assets that they can be used as local match on state and federal grants. So that was really a very enlightening approach, and we can use the donated easements as match to do larger projects with federal and state funds.
I don't understand the match. I mean, I heard what you said. I don't
You have to have
understand
local
the
match. Usually you have to have local match with a grant. And it's we normally think of it in cash grant, but this would be the value of the land that's contained in the easement. So I was really pleased with that approach.
Any other comments about Planning and Policy Committee meeting? Are there managers who have reports on events or meetings that they've attended? Thank you. Manager Gasol.
I attended the Save the Lake banquet, the LMCD Save the Lake banquet last Thursday night. And it was well attended, and they put on a nice program. And the DNR commissioner who spoke, yeah, referenced our work with AIS on several occasions.
Sounds good. The upcoming meeting and event schedule is on the agenda with the change that we are dropping the April 2nd Operations Programs Committee meeting. Any other meetings? Next item then is the audit, item 9.1, with a resolution accompanying it to accept the 2014 annual financial audit and the approval of funds transfers. And Mr. Mark Gibbs is here. There's a mic at the desk where you can stand as you wish.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me to. Oh, you're on there.
And you juggle too, that's great. We didn't know.
Anyway, we've completed the audit for December 31, 14. I've been through the audit with Manager Miller and then also with Lars, and I would like to, and then I just went through it with the audit committee. So I'll be brief here, but I'm here to answer any questions if people have any. You should have received the audit on your iPad, through email, or else there's hard copy if anyone would like it. I would just like to point out on page 8 of the audit is where we give our opinion on our report. Does somebody want a copy of it today? Just pointing out that we have a clean opinion on the district's financial statements. So our audit procedures, we go through your books and records and did not have any reason to give you anything but a clean opinion. So that's the most desirable opinion. I want to just flip ahead to statement page 12, which is statement 1. And statement 1 is a snapshot of the district's finances on December 31st, 14. You have your assets, which are largely made up of investments, and your land holdings. You can see the totals there for both of those. And on the liability side, your major liability are your loans that are about $28 million that are due, and they're scheduled in the back. And then you have equity in the district or unrestricted assets of $14 million. So that's kind of your, even though there's a lot of numbers here, those kind of 4 are the main ones. I'd also like to flip to page 37, I'm sorry. And page 37 shows your budget and actual. We spend a lot of time here during the audit making sure that the amounts the district budgeted are in the right lines, make sense. If there's overages, that are explained. If there's underages, they're explained. So if you look on page 37, your final budget, about $7.8 million of revenue, you actually received 9.9. The difference is you don't budget for the rental income, so that $1.3 million of rental income is additional. Also, you had about $700,000 in grants. I think it was St. Louis Park, Bowser, St. Louis Park was the main one. And the City of Hopkins as well, that totaled about $700,000. And you had some small FEMA grants for emergency funds. So that's, you have a positive variance of about $2 million of revenue that was over your budgeted amounts, and those are kind of the two main reasons. On the expenditure side, you budgeted to spend $12 million, 12.7. You spent 11.1 if you had all your programs and projects together. The reason I believe was weather related and some other things you had going on that you didn't expend as much as you had budgeted. All in all, you expended $1 million more than the district brought in. You were budgeted to spend down $4 million more. You ended up $3 million ahead of that. And then I won't go through all of the individual funds, but if you start on page 47, what we do is we do an analysis of all the district's management planning funds. So we look at the revenue budgeted, the expenditures, and so the 2,000 accounts for all of your programs that stay year to year, and then the 3,000 accounts for all of your projects. When we look at your projects, we make sure we have a budget, that they're funded. We look at the status at year end, and then we do the budget transfer at the end of the year where we go through with you and determine amounts that should be added to the funds from funds that have additional money, and then if there's additional funds needed, then those are added into the transfer amount. And so the transfer resolution, which you've gone through, is what we'd be asking you to approve tonight with the audit, and that's resolution number 15.027 or 15-027. So I guess in addition to the audit, we'd have to be asking you to approve the resolution for transfers tonight. And if anybody has any questions on either the audit or resolution, I'd be glad to try to answer them. If not,
Questions, managers? Appears we don't have any questions.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to be of service.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept the audit and approve the funds transfers?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Questions? Manager Miller?
Can you tell me what an auditor does? I think I know, but in terms of you accept the information we provide, make sure that it's accurate, and do you note any? You would have brought to our attention if you noted any transactions that were questionable or not approved by the board, or et cetera.
Yes.
Okay.
So the procedures that we do are outlined on page 7, and sorry I didn't mention that in the opinion paragraph. The second to last paragraph states the procedures that we do, which include testing, expenditure, and receipts. We also employ software where we pull out like-minded payments of, like if there's a payment for the same amount, we pull that out and look at it to make sure there isn't a double payment. We also have software that looks at payment. For example, if you had 12 payments to one vendor, one payment a month, and one was significantly larger than the other, our software would pull that out and we would examine that. So we do tests of expenditures in that manner. We test we read the minutes and note the activity of the district, and then we tie the minutes back into capital projects to make sure that those have been approved in capital expenditure purchases as well.
One other question.
Yes.
You audit several watershed districts?
Correct.
Yeah. How would you describe our processes relative to everybody else?
So we audit probably I believe 3 of the largest watershed districts in the metro area, including yours. We audit 15 in total. Your budget process, you have really a triple check. You have a budget process. You have a third party outside accountant preparing your invoices, and then the checks themselves are approved by the board of managers at the meetings. So our feeling is that your controls are very good. You actually, like I said, you have 3 checks on amounts that are going out, and so I would compare it to, say, a $20 million manufacturing company. I believe your controls are much stronger because in a small business you would have one person doing all those. So your controls, procedures, and checks are probably at the top of the watersheds that we audit.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Any other questions? We have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. There are no permits, I'm sorry. We have a public hearing and presentation this evening. Item 10.1, Metro Bloom's Nokomis Neighbors for Clean Water. Project public hearing. Mr. Item. Before you begin, because this is a public hearing, if there are individuals who wish to make a statement, the board will make opportunity for that to happen after the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, managers. Tonight I'm presenting for the public hearing to consider cost share funding for the Nokomis Neighbors for Clean Water project. The reason we're holding this public hearing is the district policy procedures and a resolution that was passed in 2013 for holding a public hearing to review before authorizing cost share funds in excess of $50,000. Tonight I'll just go through the outline here, present an overview of the project timeline, the implementation strategy, the overall budget of the project and where the contributions are coming from, and then the outcomes of the project. So an overview here, the Nokomis Neighbors for Clean Water project is a partnership between Metro Bloom's Blue Thumb, the merged organization, City of Minneapolis, Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, Bowser, Hennepin County, Friends of Lake Nokomis, and the Nokomis East Neighborhood Association, as well as the Master Water Stewards and Master Gardeners. So this project is an alleyway stormwater improvement project as a community engagement opportunity to treat residential runoff, create wildlife habitat corridors within an urban fabric, and celebrate a neighborhood scale effort that aligns the goals of government entities and the public to protect Lake Nokomis. Project timeline here, I'll go through from 2013 when there was a Cynthia Krieg grant awarded to Metro Blooms to do a subwatershed analysis of Lake Nokomis area to see where the greatest opportunities were for cost beneficial stormwater retrofits in the residential setting, the urban fabric around the lake. That also included some initial community outreach to engage the public and start to gather participation for a future opportunity. In 2014, the district awarded a cost share grant for an initial demonstration alleyway to be constructed within the Nokomis subwatershed. And there were also grants received from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Hennepin County helped out with some enriched funding. The district did fund a majority of that project. We were the 50% contribution, and the other funds were around the $5,000 to $6,000 range. We approved funding for $26,000 through the process. We lost 2 of the participants, but we still were able to install 14 BMPs within that alleyway and receive close to pollutant reduction estimate of 1 pound of phosphorus removal. Also in 2014 in the fall, City of Minneapolis and Minnehaha Creek Watershed District assisted in applying for the Bowser Clean Water Legacy Fund grant. District helped out with a letter of support and overview of the application itself and applying as a partner. The project was awarded $399,000 from Bowser Clean Water Fund grant, and the project was also awarded $50,000 from Hennepin County. So in 2015, we're looking for cost share funding from the district with a proposed amount of $100,000 over a series of years, being reimbursed in phases as the project's being completed. Also in 2015 is the first phase of construction for this project proposed and outreach to move forward. 2016 and 17, they're proposing 2 separate phases of construction. So overall, 5 phases of construction, anywhere from 2 to 4 alleyways at a time. And I'll get into more details of where those will be taking place within this subwatershed later on. Here's the map with the overall plan and analysis that was done by Metro Blooms. Pretty comprehensive map here, and I'll try to explain all of the pieces to it. The blocks that are highlighted in a light blue are the blocks that have a committed block leader that Metro Blooms is working with to do the peer-to-peer outreach, the initial door knocking, seeing who would be interested in participating in this project. Trying to recruit as many participants as possible. The goal of this project is to install 180 BMPs on 15 alleyways. In the northeast corner of the lake, which is has a hash mark across it, that is considered the focus area. Through the analysis that was done, comparing, looking at the district's comprehensive plan as well as the Nokomis Hiawatha Master Plan. This was an area that was proposed as creating the most polluted runoff without any treatment being done to it. So in the southwest corner of Lake Nokomis, we have the treatment ponds that's capturing majority of that runoff and treating that runoff. Beyond this map, there's also the Taft Legion Regional Treatment Project that the district's working on to capture the runoff from Richfield. This area in the northeast corner here, the majority of it drains to two outlets directly to the lake. So this is an area in our plan that was earmarked for potential for working within the existing urban fabric to do some retrofits and promote BMPs on residential properties. So that's how it ties greatly into some of the district's initiatives in this area. Also a biomanipulation study going on and through the district here, so hoping to treat some of that internal loading as well. The plus marks, what is in orange, they're all congregated on one block there. That was the installation last year that we helped fund. So that was the first project that went through, and then there's 15 other blocks marked off here for this next larger 15 alleyway installation. All of the pluses out. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Miller.
On the block that's completed, has there been any analysis of the effectiveness of the treatment?
There hasn't been any monitoring of it. I did go out and do an inspection to see what was installed, and that was mostly observations walking the alleyway. There were pictures taken from after rain events, seeing what was being captured. So those BMPs that were installed, like the pervious paver strips at the ends of the driveways, the rain gardens themselves, were functioning properly. As far as this year goes, there actually wasn't too much of the bioswales that were proposed along the edges of the detached garages, where they thought maybe plowing might, the long-term maintenance of that might not hold up because of the plows going through, and majority of snow maybe being piled in the rain gardens on the alleyway. Everything seems to have been holding up pretty well and functioning properly to this point still, but there hasn't been any overall what before and after runoff is being captured.
And do you plan on doing any monitoring? I don't know if it'd be in the alley exactly, or outlets to the lake, or what.
Most of the reporting and overall monitoring is going to be with the community impact, with who's all being involved and who's being reached through this project. But as far as the pollutant loading numbers, there hasn't been anything earmarked for monitoring the amount of water being captured.
Well, I don't have any problem at all with beautification, but if we got an opportunity here to really gather some meaningful information about the effectiveness on our primary mission, the water quality in Lake Nokomis, I think it'd be important. So can you see if you can work with the monitoring department?
I mean, definitely. Okay. What we have is the wind slam modeling that was done with the design that was done for the one alleyway that has been constructed and kind of multiplying that over, 15 more, and proposing that if we get a third of each of these blocks, so 10 to 12 properties to participate, the estimating capturing 60% of those properties runoff, because on average 60% of the site's runoff drains toward the alleyway. If we were capturing that, it would be 1 pound of phosphorus removal per alleyway. So those are estimates. There isn't a strict monitoring in place.
Go ahead.
I guess just to finish up, with the Bowser funding and looking at our funding too, wanting to make sure and guarantee that we're going to get 180 BMPs installed through this project. All of the blue plus symbols around the subwatershed are properties that have had communication with Metro Bloom's on-site consultations and are willing to either participate in this project or might come forward for cost share funding at a separate time, or maybe do a project on their own. So they are guaranteeing that 180 BMPs will be installed in the next 3 years, hoping that a majority of those will be within those 15 alleyways.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the board on this project? I see no hands. Are there managers who were not making a decision, of course, but who have considerations they'd like staff to take into their consideration? No? Thank you very much.
Madam
Yes.
Chair, I did draft an RBA for this project, and we did have at the OPC meeting conversation, and that's where I asked for a recommendation for funding of the project and to hold this public hearing tonight. And so we received those recommendations, had a recommendation from the CAC for funding for this project as well. So was looking for, potentially after the public hearing, if the board wanted to move the item to a further action for the next meeting.
I'm afraid I was inattentive. Is the RBA in our packet?
Yes.
Okay, my bad. So you're looking for a motion to advance this, or just, I will put it on the agenda.
Why don't we just approve it tonight?
Managers?
Second.
Well, we're not looking at the RBA, Mr. Holman. Well, we are looking.
I just want to note, I don't think you formally closed the public hearing.
Thank you very much. Public hearing is closed. Let me catch up to where everyone else seems to be.
We're not that far yet.
Oh, good. Phew, it's a relief. Just what happens when I read my board packet too early in the week. I forget what it's in already. Okay, so we have a resolution here on authorization to cost share funding for the Columbus Neighbors for Clean Water. Did you move it, Manager Olson?
Manager Shuckleton did,
Manager
I
Schechter,
seconded.
And you seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you
you.
for catching me up there.
No problem.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Holman?
I'm wondering if staff could provide a number for the resolution? Not necessarily Mr. Oden, but if there's a doctor in the house.
There's a 3 X's after the 15.
Yep. That's why I'm looking into a consent agenda for next month, but
Well, I think we should approve it now and just
yep.
sign a,
We can assign from the
The
latest
last
meeting.
resolution in our packet is 031. Can we assume that we just assign the next number? I'm seeing nods from staff. Mr. Whisker?
I think if that's the last number in the packet, that's the number that we can assign administratively after the board moves it.
So then it would be, the XXX would be X11.
It'll be 032. All right.
Wrong numeral.
Correct.
Thank you. And Mr. Holtman, that's Do we need to have a member attached to approve it, or can you work that out administratively if that doesn't work? I assume it does.
It's fine. Just
Okay.
It's on the record now, please.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We have no permits requiring discussion this evening. Moving down to action items, item 12.2, Ms. Clark, Resolution 15-028. Go ahead.
President White, managers, the requested action tonight is to award a contract for construction and a construction oversight contract for the Powell Road Stormwater Diversion Project. This project is one of 3 projects to treat regional stormwater, 268 acres of regional stormwater at the district's property on 325 Blake Road in the city of Hopkins. The other 2 phases include a diversion on Lake Street and then the regional facility itself. Final action is requested to award the construction contract for the Powell Road Stormwater Diversion Project to Minger Construction for the amount of $798,014 to establish a construction budget for the not-to-exceed amount of $877,815 and to authorize the construction oversight contract to Wank Associates for $54,150. This week, the Watershed District received notification that we'll be receiving $529,457,000 of grant funding for this project. In July, the board authorized staff to submit a grant application to the Public Facilities Authority for a point source implementation grant, which is typically assigned to wastewater projects, actually. Mike Heyman in our office coordinated with the Public Facilities Authority and wrote the grant application, which was accepted. The grant application includes all 3 phases of the project. Funding is based on actual certified costs, available grant funds, and available match. So for the Powell Road Diversion Project, we're receiving the full 50% construction funding, and the grant application also included land acquisition costs for the easement for this project, as well as design costs for this project. So that money includes 50% funding for those costs incurred by the district as well. So again, the grant was for all 3 phases of the project: the Lake Street Diversion Project and the Regional Treatment Facility. Funding will be approved, again, based on the approval of the design, certification of as-bid construction costs, and then available grant funding from the Public Facility Authority at that time.
Nice. Manager Miller.
It's really good work getting a grant. I know there's a lot of competition for those from the Public Facilities Authority, especially in the rural areas, have so much needs. The Public Facilities Authority also has a loan program, which the Metro Council uses and most of the cities use, and it's a huge subsidy. Have we looked into utilizing those grants? I don't know if we're eligible for stormwater. I know they're basically sanitary sewer, but I see James has got it.
Mr. Whisker.
Manager Miller, managers, I guess I'll come up. Manager Miller, managers, at the time the board authorized staff to seek these funds and pursue the PSIG grant through the Public Facilities Authority, that was part of the discussion. And there's sort of a tactical decision to go after the straight grant dollars instead of the low interest loan, specifically because the low interest loan dollars come with a lot of strings attached related to the land and its final disposition.
Okay.
And so since it involved cold storage and we don't exactly know what the final disposition of land along the creek will be, whether it's going to be public, private, what the final acreage is, there was a decision made to not take advantage of the low interest loan. Plus, the amount that this project would have been eligible for was kind of nominal when compared against those encumbrances, the risk
Okay.
of those encumbrances.
All right, thank you very much. It's really, really good work.
So you are looking for authorization to award the contract.
Move approval.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Item 12.3 is the resolution to order the Highway 101 Causeway Reconstruction Project. I believe we have a representative of Wayzata here. To recognize you.
Thank you. My name is Bridget Anderson. I'm on the Wayzata City Council. And I just wanted to come forth and here tonight and show my support for all the work that you guys have put forward in partnering with us, working together on this long effort that we've been working on with Bushway Road, or 101 as you know of it. And we're very supportive of these efforts going forward with the lack of my terminology understanding, the design efforts and the interesting technological advancements that you guys are making with the stormwater management around that area. So I just wanted to be here to show my support and let you guys know that as well.
Thank you, Council Member. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Ms. Schaffler.
Madam President, managers, tonight the board is requested to officially order the Highway 101 Causeway Reconstruction Project. The board held a public hearing on February 26th. At that time, we received some comments on the preliminary concept that was provided to the board. As stated at the public hearing, staff did notify everybody who provided comments at that public hearing that the project ordering was on the board agenda this evening. Generally at the public hearing, comments made were mainly about aesthetics of the preliminary concept, and we did move forward with the recommendation that Mr. Anderson had requested, which was to provide the drawing that's in front of you tonight. So tonight I'm just going to walk through the design concepts, taking into consideration the comments that were received at the public hearing. Again, go over the cost and the benefits, and then finish with the timeline. So this drawing here, I tried to simplify the version that was provided at the public hearing. So what I'm going to do is walk you through each of the colors to provide an understanding of what that section will look like from the causeway. So this section, the top section that you see here, originally when we presented the public hearing, we weren't proposing to do any sort of planting along this way just because of the limited soil that was available to plant into. So taking the recommendations from the public hearing, we did move forward and suggested planting emergent plantings in this area. So this area is what you see in blue, where the emergent plantings will go along the Grays Bay side. The cross section on the bottom of the page is what was proposed at the public hearing, was where we could do live stake plantings where there was enough planting medium to plant into. And this will be done in the areas that are noted in orange. Moving to the Grays Bay side, the top section, nothing has changed from the public hearing. We're still recommending doing the VRS that was proposed to help meet the district's permit. And this is being proposed on the Wayzata side on areas in red. The bottom section is the same for both sides. It's an area that has a little bit more land mass that we refer to as a small island planting. And on these areas on both sides of the causeway, we're proposing to supplement the county's planting by providing an additional 10 trees and also supplementing with some live stake plantings. And this is noted in green on both sides. So the drawing that's in front of you tonight was at Mr. Anderson's request. So what we've done here is, starting from the top, that's starting at the southern portion of the causeway, and then the middle section is the middle section of the causeway, and then the bottom is the northern section of it. One point of clarification I want to make is the fence that's portrayed on here, which is pretty small to see, isn't quite what will be there. It'll be more a horizontal cable railing, so I just want to make that point. Although the main purpose of this drawing is to focus on the vegetation and what that's going to look like. One point I do want to make also is that this drawing is one-dimensional, and therefore it's hard to understand how shading will affect this. So if you look up here, the cantilever trail will be along the whole thing. next to the railing. So in this instance, you'll have cantilever trail running here, and it will be hanging over the shoreline 4 feet. So that'll provide pretty significant shading to help buffer the wall itself. And then also you have the emergent vegetation coming up from the lake. So hopefully the shading and the vegetation itself will provide a more appealing aesthetic view from the lake. As we discussed at the public hearing, there is an associated floodplain wetland restoration project associated with the Bushaway project to help meet the district's permit requirements. So again, here, this is a site in Minnetrista and working with the city to acquire the land. The area in purple is what the district is setting aside for its restoration. The area in blue is the area that the city has set aside for their restoration or mitigation for their floodplain fill of Enchanted Lane. So tonight, the board is requested to officially order the project for a budget of $1,604,308. And the benefits are, again, promoting the bioengineering on the Wayzata Bay side, improving water quality, enhancing shoreline habitat, and providing erosion control. And with that, I can take any, I said I'd end with the site schedule. So we held the public hearing last month, tonight, requesting the board officially order the project and anticipate beginning design this fall, and then begin construction in the winter of 2016 into the spring of 2017.
Move the motion.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion or questions from Ms. Schauffer? Manager Blixt?
So, I'm just, don't remember, did we levy for this project already? Or are we going to be levying in the next budget year?
Mr. Whisker?
I'm not sure.
Manager Blixt, managers, the cooperative agreement that we've entered into with Hennepin County provides the district access to the project site for construction following the completion of the road work, which is anticipated late 2016. So earliest we probably get in to do the shoreline work after it's been designed is end of 2016, early 2017. And so we're looking this year's budget forecast and splitting the levy probably over 2 years for this project.
All right, but I guess what I just saw was that the design work was going to begin this year.
Yes, that's a possibility that we could begin preliminary design and advance through 30-40% design. The ordering action that the board takes is a formality to transfer the project from concept stage into design, and we've taken a look at the planning department budget. We probably have funds to initiate preliminary design work. We're coordinating with the county and the city on that because we don't want to begin formal design work of anything until they've driven sheet piling. We know exactly what the as-built conditions are. So sort of initiating the design, when we'll start that is a little bit of a moving target because it's tied to the county's construction schedule.
So, but based on what you just told me, it sounds like we have not levied for the project at all yet, but that, I'm just trying to really make sure I understood what you're telling me. We have not levied yet, and yet we're going to begin work on it this year, but you're anticipating you're going to find the money from somewhere to pay for the design work before we levy. Is that what you just said?
I think what I said was that we're looking at the planning department budget, and based on the construction schedule of the end of 2017, if we want to initiate design this fall, we look to the planning department funds to be able to do that for the preliminary design contract. The construction budget for building the project would be part of the 2016 and the 2017 levy, and also we pursue grant funds like we do for any project.
Manager Miller?
Okay.
This shouldn't get dropped on us all, you know.
I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out.
We've been talking about this for like 4 years at least, and I think we probably should have been levying all along for it, but we never had a grasp of, you know, what the final product was going to look like. So I think we're not being irresponsible, but we probably could have done a little better fiscal planning, but I don't think it's putting us in any kind of jeopardy not having the funds on hand and authorizing continuing the planning activity.
Yeah, I'm fine with doing that. I just trying to understand where the money's gonna come from this year.
Sure.
And I'm fine with planning to levy for the full amount, or however you want to propose to do it, over the 2 years. I'm just trying to figure out that we're gonna have enough money to do what you're asking us to do this fall.
Yeah. That's something, Manager Blix, that we're still looking at within the planning department budget. Every year we do include sort of funds that are the discretion of the board directed planning activities. And so we look at how this matches up with other priorities that we have on tap, and it may be that we can, and we may want to and could initiate design this year, but it's often the case for some of these larger multi-year projects that we don't know exactly all of the source of the funds that we need when the board orders them.
Thank you. Good. Other questions, managers? Is there a
Well, I would like to direct staff to include a projected 50% funding in next year's levy. So make sure that, you know, it's on the record.
Second. Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Mr. Holmes?
There's a motion on the floor, so it might be best to
Is it already a motion?
dispense.
Okay, I'll move to amend it, amend the motion.
And that's seconded. All right, is there discussion on the motion to amend? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion as amended is to approve the RVA and to direct staff to include the proportional 50% budget in the levy. Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Anderson, for attending this evening.
I think it should not go unnoticed, the amount of effort that the staff and the board put into this project with City of Wayzata and Hennepin County and the Bushway Road folks.
Yes.
And especially the work that Manager Casella has done on this for the last 4 years.
Thank you, Manager Casal. Good point. Item 12.4, Resolution 15-030, Ms. Hall.
President White, managers, I'm here tonight to recommend authorization to execute an MOU with the City of Victoria. And what the MOU really does is it positions the district and the city as principal partners in future and current planning of the city. And this is important because it links up land use, infrastructure, development, parks, and natural areas in the fastest growing and developing area of 6 Mile Creek subwatershed. The MOU outlines 3 main areas where we can collaborate together, but there are also other areas where we contribute to each other. The first one is coordinated planning. So the city is they're growing rapidly through an orderly annexation process. And this coordinated planning really puts us hand in hand with the city to understand the intersection between the built and the natural environments. And so we can align our capital investments and planning efforts to build more sustainable communities and protect water resources in the city. The second part of the MOU calls out to assess specific water resource management issues in the city. Some of those are flooding at the Deer Run Golf Course and Zumbra Lake. Another one is wetland restoration around Carl Cray Lake and help assisting the city in getting residents into that area. And then addressing impairments around Lake Wasserman. And then the third area where I'm most excited about being in permitting is the proactive regulatory coordination, which puts the district
at the table with the city and the development community from conception to implementation of development plans. The permitting program is really the first responders of the face of the district a lot of the times, and we see development happening at all stages over all 181 square miles of the district. And we have people with boots on the ground before development happens, and they understand the landscape, they understand the potential impacts from development, and have the potential, if they were at the table, to influence development in a positive way that improves the natural and the built environment. But how it works now, we have, because of the limited timeframes we have to work under, because of when people come to us with their designs, we are restricted in our ability to influence things, and because we're late to the game, we often have to regulate people on the back end, and people don't like to be regulated. And this also results in coordination costs to the private and public sectors. Is my microphone weird? But coordination costs to the private and public sectors doing it this way, because you can get all the way to final plat with the city, come to us and realize you don't meet any of our rules and have to go back to square one. So there's costs to doing that, and then there's missed opportunities to do something better. And lastly, if we're not at the table with the city while they're developing, we're not understanding their goals, their municipal goals of our partners. So there's a recent meeting that we had with the city of Victoria that it was evident that this is the way we should be doing things there. We were at the concept stage for a development that had implications for roads, implications for natural resource impacts, and a large development that would bring capital to the city. We brought everyone together, and there were significant things that needed to be changed, and so it ended up saving a lot of people a lot of time and money to redo it on the back end. And additionally, through restructuring, the recent restructuring of the roles of the permitting department and realigning us under planning, we've recognized the potential to go a step further with the permitting program, to do more and to do better. And we've had some recent successes with this, like the Mater Bank, the Stonegate property, and then Laura will be talking more about partnership with the Reckelbachers. And this just shows how the permitting program can serve as an innovative pipeline for cost share projects, for land conservation, and for capital projects. So this permitting approach is especially important in Victoria, as it is a priority geography for us right now. So I'm just really enthusiastic about it. So I'm here just to request approval of to authorize the execution of the memorandum of understanding.
Manager Miller.
I think this is the most significant thing that we've done in the 12 or so years that I've been on the board this session. It shows several things as far as I'm concerned. One, very creative and energetic staff that really puts forth effort to find solutions rather than put up roadblocks, and seek opportunities every place that they can. And I really think it's really exciting. And number two, the community that wasn't too happy about our involvement in the past, because there wasn't good sense of cooperation. And I think this is just a marvelous piece of work, and it should be not only noted, but try to duplicate it in other developing areas. It's just really excellent staffing.
So are you willing to move it?
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Manager Secretary?
So I agree with Dave. Like this kind of relationship is the ideal one. Any sense for how we can replicate? elsewhere?
Well, we're trying to get to the table earlier with cities, and a good way to do that is through permitting, you know? So during the regulatory process, it was disjointed because we'd go to an applicant and work with them, and then they'd go to the city and work with them, and then they'd come back to us. But why don't we just put everyone together and work on the front end? And then we start, the permitting program, we have relationships with cities because we see them, talk to them all the time. And there's just a way to foster that relationship and grow it and show them that we're so much more than just a regulatory agency.
I guess I was really asking the question because I hope that those kinds of conversations, that the example that this sets can be leveraged elsewhere, because it's the right way of doing it.
I think it
For
can.
all the reasons you just articulated.
Yeah.
And the city of Victoria was very happy to, when we were having our kickoff meetings for the comp plan, to have us talk about some of the initiatives out there, including the wetland bank. So there's a lot of good feeling, cooperation, and getting everyone's goals met better, I think.
Yeah.
We have a motion and second. Is there any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to ask James, would this be appropriate time to have the board designate members to work on the 6 Mile task force?
Manager Miller, managers, the staff has posting out for planning project manager position that would essentially be tasked with running the local sub-watershed planning for 6 Mile. We have the MOU with Victoria. I got a call today from a couple lake associations, including the Pearson Lake Association, which we're tracking this on. The city and our agenda are very excited about moving forward. And we'll be starting the planning work within the next couple months. And so if the board wants to entertain liaisons to this project, I think, that's timely.
Okay, I'll move that Manager Calkins, White, and Olson be the designated board members to work on this as liaison on this 6 Mile Creek project, because it's going to be a very significant impact on our workload, and a lot of new policies are going to be uncovered, and it'd be good to have the board knowledgeable about all of these opportunities and challenges. So I so move.
For the purpose of getting this on the table, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. What is the timing for getting the committee or the task force for the advisory committee appointed for this 6 Mile?
President White, managers, that's a question probably best left for Becky Christopher, who's not here tonight, but presumably within the next 45 days, we'd have committee assignments.
Mm-hmm.
I think we left it outside of the 3 public meetings that we had, or kickoff meetings for the comprehensive plan, that staff would synthesize interest in the committee meetings and then work with the board to make committee assignments. So I think that's something that she's doing and working on, and will be coming back in front of the board soon.
And I think the last splash, or the next to last splash, still had an announcement telling people there was a chance to participate
Okay.
in that as well. There's a motion and a second. The Manager Culkin, Manager Olson, myself, Manager Olson.
And President, you may want to change that third name to the person who sits in the Carver County spot.
Rather than naming a specific manager.
Yeah.
There's a portent in that
Yeah.
comment. Would you accept that as
Sure.
an amendment? Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That'll be fun. Good evening, Ms. Domjancic. We're on to 12.5, Resolution 15-031.
Madam President, managers, earlier this month, Peter and Mindy Reckelbacher expressed interest in working cooperatively with the district to plan the future development and restoration of a parcel of land in Medina that they had recently acquired. A small portion of the 75-acre parcel will eventually be residentially developed for the Reckelbachers' purposes, but a priority of Peter and Mindy will be to conserve and restore significant natural resource features on the property. And these resources include a tamarack bog that is an extension of the Stonegate property directly to the east. On the map above, the Reckelbacher property is outlined in blue, and the northernmost parcel of the Stonegate property is just to the east there. So the tamarack bog extends to the west on the Reckelbachers' property. The Policy and Planning Committee last week recommended that staff pursue the option of the district becoming a land steward for the Stonegate conservation areas through the holding of a conservation easement. Additionally, the Stonegate and Reckelbacher properties combined provide a corridor connection between Baker Park to the west and then Woolsfeld Woods to the east. Similarly, the Reckelbachers have also expressed interest in the district providing them with technical assistance in the restoration of farmed wetlands and uplands on the property, treatment of invasive species, and possible opportunities for wetland bank creation, and exploring grant funding for the restoration work as well. Staff has found that a useful means of memorializing these shared goals is to enter into a memorandum of understanding. This MOU between the district and the Reckelbachers outlines general goals and expectations of both parties in preserving the ecological integrity of the natural resources while providing for its economic use as well. Peter and Mindy are very excited about the opportunity to partner with the district, but couldn't be here tonight.
Have you been a court reporter? I mean, you talk so fast. That,
I am a fast talker.
And you got a really important message here that I'm trying to catch up to. But you think a lot faster than I can listen.
It sounds like, speak more slowly.
I will do that. Thank you. Peter and Mindy are very excited about the opportunity to partner with the district. They couldn't be here tonight because they're on vacation, but are excited to work with us. And tonight, staff requests authorization to execute the Memorandum of Understanding with Peter and Mindy Reckelbacher to collaboratively assess conservation and restoration potential in the parcel.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Is there discussion, questions? This is very cool, and it connects those areas very nicely.
Very well.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Great work. This is good.
The next item, which was added to the agenda, is the correspondence received from the county board. In the minutes that we just approved, you'll see that the board at its last meeting at the workshop asked the executive committee to meet to discuss the correspondence we received from Commissioner Callison and to provide guidance and response. A subsequent event is that our legal counsel received an inquiry from the county attorney, and I'll ask Mr. Holton in a moment to give us a brief summary of that, and then I can report on the recommendation made by the executive committee. I'd be happy to make a motion on behalf of the committee. Mr. Holton, would you describe that request that we received?
Madam Chair, board members, I think as a result of doesn't this go on? As a result of recent press related to the watershed district, and in particular a story on Fox 9, I believe, referring to the matters that had been raised by certain managers, concern about use of funds or staff resources in the district. The district had put out a brief statement to respond to that, in which, among other things, they referenced the fact that the district had looked at the matters raised internally. We had done that, legal counsel had done that pursuant to Mr. Spartz's request when these were raised. And so the county attorney recently contacted Lewis to ask if he could obtain a copy of the memorandum that we prepared for Mr. Spartz. And the memorandum is attorney-client privilege, so we weren't at liberty to do that, but we raised it with Manager White because it's been requested by the county attorney, and also our understanding through Mr. Rogan is that he referenced that the commissioners themselves would be interested in having access to that.
Thank you. Thank you. We discussed the nature of the request, that this was a privileged matter, and it is the board's prerogative whether they wish to waive their attorney-client privilege. And it is the recommendation of the executive committee that I will turn to, that I will make as a motion, that we would give our legal counsel authority to waive our attorney-client privilege to the extent that this memorandum will be given to the county attorney to be shared with the county board, with the understanding that the nature of the material would remain not under our privilege, but as a non-public data being shared by one public board to another public board. Have I left anything out of my motion?
Second.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Holtman?
Well, there was also discussion about the auditor's inquiry,
Yes.
and so I think you wanted to extend that as well to our ability to cooperate with the auditor's office.
Yes, the auditor had requested of Mr. Erdahl 2 invoices which have been supplied to the state auditor. And we could, this motion could also say that if the state auditor does request this same information, we would also allow counsel to provide that to the state auditor, if it were requested. Discussion, Manager Blixt.
I just have a question, seeing as how the board hasn't seen this report, are we going to get a copy of the report?
Well, the discussion we had was that any manager may request this. It is yours. It is ours. And that by authorizing counsel to release this information, it would give us an opportunity to review it before it was seen by the county board. If, however, managers were not content with that, we could postpone this decision until the 9th of April, though that is time stretch. So there are options.
Okay. I think we should respond expeditiously.
I think so too. There's no reason to hold it back, and as long as we have a day or day and a half or whatever to look it over ourselves, and we've seen it before, the county board has seen it. Any manager could just request it from Mr. Holden.
Sure.
Would that be adequate for you?
I would think so. It's hard to know not having seen it.
Any other discussion or questions? There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Mr. Holtman, you had a look on your face. I wonder if you wanted to add something?
I think I missed who moved and seconded.
I moved it, and
Manager Miller.
Manager Miller seconded. The last item on the agenda is the administrator's report. Mr. Erdahl.
Thank you, President White. I just have a couple things to update the managers on. One is that the Met Council is collecting additional information to facilitate permit review of the Tunnel Interceptor project near the Parkway. This will include complete ground penetrating radar to assess that area. And the earliest the permit will likely come back to the board would be at the workshop on April 9th. So that's still pending. I think that has been on the agenda a couple times and moved off the agenda pending these other assessments. And then also related to the Mader Family Trust in Minnetrista, staff worked to advance the Mader's project and that concept plan through the Parks Commission and Planning Commission of Minnetrista. The Planning Commission spoke very favorably about the level of integrated planning that went into that project. In fact, I think the comment they shared with our staff was they wish all their developments were like this. the council can take the final action on that on April 6th for their.
Thank you. Anything else? We are adjourned.